That night, standing in front of my son's coffin, I heard the words no mother should ever hear. He told me he hated you. My daughter-in-law, Emily, said it out loud in front of everyone, and I felt the earth open up beneath my feet. My name is Kathy. I am 56 years old, and this story has cost me sleepless nights, tears I thought I had run out of, and a silence so heavy it almost drowned me. But today I'm going to tell it, because there are things that cannot be kept forever, and because my son, my Daniel, deserves for someone to tell the truth. It all started 3 months ago, or maybe it started long before that, and I just did not want to see it. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the call. The phone rang while I was making cinnamon coffee, the kind Daniel had loved so much since he was a boy. I still remember the smell of cinnamon filling the kitchen, the golden light of sunset coming through the window. Mrs. Smith said, a voice I did not recognize, "We regret to inform you that your son, Daniel, has passed away. There was a car accident on the interstate." The phone fell from my hands. An accident. Just like that suddenly. My 32-year-old son, healthy, strong, responsible, gone in an instant. I got to the hospital however I could. I do not remember driving. I only remember the smell of disinfectant, the endless white hallways, and the door to the morgue. Emily was already there. My daughter-in-law, the woman Daniel had loved so much he married her 5 years ago against my advice. Not because she was a bad person, or so I thought back then, but because something in my mother's instinct told me that marriage was not going to end well. But Daniel was in love, and I stayed silent. Mother-in-law Emily said when she saw me arrive. Her eyes were dry. Not a single tear. What a tragedy, right? I could barely speak. I just nodded. I wanted to hug someone, cry with someone, share this impossible pain. But Emily walked away quickly, talking on her phone, organizing the funeral as if she were planning a party. The following days were a blurry nightmare. The wake the flowers people saying things that offered no comfort at all. And then came the funeral. St. Francis Church was full. Daniel was loved by everyone. A civil engineer, hardworking, a good friend, a good son, my son. I was in the front pew with my rosary in my trembling hands when Emily approached. She was wearing an elegant black dress, flawless makeup. She looked more like an actress at a premiere than a devastated widow. She leaned toward me and whispered, "Kathy, I need you to leave." I did not understand. I thought I had heard wrong. What I said. "Leave," she repeated now in a louder voice. "You have no right to be here." People started to turn around. The murmurs grew like waves. "Emily, this is my son's funeral." "He was my husband," she interrupted me. Her eyes shone with something that was not pain. It was something cold, calculated. "And he did not want you here." I stood up, shaking. "What are you saying?" Then she said it. She said it out loud for everyone to hear. "He told me he hated you." The world stopped. I felt all the stares pinned on me. I heard the gasped breaths. I saw the faces of surprise, of pity, of judgment. "That is not true," I managed to say, but my voice sounded broken. "Of course it is true," Emily insisted. "Daniel told me everything. How you abandoned him when he was a child. How you never supported him. How you always preferred your work over him. Lies, all lies. But no one looked at me with compassion, only with pity. Please, I begged. Leave, Emily ordered. And then she made a signal. 2 men from the funeral home staff approached. "Ma'am, please come with us." They took me out of there. They took me out of my own son's funeral, in tears, humiliated, destroyed. Outside, in the church parking lot, I collapsed against my car. I cried until I had no tears left, until only dry sobs remained, and a pain that split my chest in 2. But then I remembered something. I put my trembling hand in my purse and took out my cell phone. I searched through the messages until I found what I needed. An audio message. The last audio Daniel had sent me. It was just 2 weeks ago. I listened to it again, sitting there in my car while people came out of the church without looking at me. My son's voice filled my ears. Serious, worried, scared. "Mom, I need to tell you something important. If something happens to me, if anything happens to me, do not trust Emily, please. She is not who she says she is. I have proof. I have... Come to the house tomorrow when she is not there. It is urgent." And then before hanging up, he added something else. Something that froze my blood. "Mom, the boy is not mine." The audio ended. I stayed there paralyzed with the phone in my hand. My son did not hate me. My son had asked me for help. And 2 days after sending me that message, he had his accident. I looked up at the church. Emily was at the door receiving condolences, playing the role of the perfect widow. And in that moment, I knew this had not been an accident. I knew my son had discovered something that cost him his life. And I knew that I was the only person in the world who had that recording. Sometimes we trust too much in those we should not write. Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read it. To understand why Emily's words destroyed me so much, I need to take you to the beginning, to the days when everything was light, to when Daniel was just a boy with curious eyes running through the house shouting, "Mommy, look what I did!" Because my son did not hate me. He never hated me. And I know it because I was there in every moment of his life. Daniel was born on March 28th in a small hospital downtown. It was raining that night. I remember the sound of the rain against the windows while I pushed, sweat cried. And when they finally put him in my arms, wet and crying, I felt my life found meaning. His dad, Michael, was by my side. "He is perfect," he told me, kissing my forehead. "Our family is complete." The first years were tough financially. Michael worked as an electrician and I taught English at a private school. We lived in a small apartment in the suburbs. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, but it was our home, and it was full of love. Daniel was a brilliant boy. He learned to talk before the other kids. He was always asking questions. "Why is the sky blue, Mommy? Why do birds fly? Why do I have to sleep if I am not sleepy?" I answered everything with patience. I stayed with him at the kitchen table, surrounded by books, helping him with his homework. I made him his favorite hot cocoa while we studied. Those nights were magical. On Sundays, we went to the park. Michael carried Daniel on his shoulders and I walked beside him, holding his arm. We bought lemon popsicles. Daniel got his whole face messy and we laughed. My God, how we laughed. I remember a particular Sunday. Daniel was 6 years old. We were at the park near the lake. He had brought his new kite, a blue kite shaped like an eagle that Michael had given him for his birthday. "Mommy, look at it fly," Daniel shouted, running with the string in his hands. His eyes shone with pure happiness. Michael hugged me from behind. "We have a good son, Kathy, the best," I replied, leaning on his chest. We did not know then that those days were numbered. Michael died when Daniel was 8 years old, a massive heart attack. On a Tuesday morning, while he was eating breakfast, he put his hand to his chest. He looked at me with scared eyes, and before I could do anything, he was gone. Michael's death destroyed us both. Daniel stopped smiling. He became quiet, withdrawn. At night, I heard him crying in his room. And I went in, lay down next to him, and we cried together until we fell asleep. "Is Daddy coming back, Mommy?" he asked me. "No, my love, but he is in heaven, watching over us. Then I am going to take care of you," he told me one night, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "I am going to be the man of the house now." And so it was. Daniel grew up to become the most noble man I ever knew. Studious, hard-working, protective. When he was 13 and I came home tired from teaching all day, he had already made dinner. Nothing fancy, just grilled cheese or eggs, but he did it with so much love that it tasted like heaven. "Sit down, Mommy. You already worked a lot. How can anyone say I abandoned that child? How can Emily invent those lies? Daniel and I were a team." When he entered high school, I worked double shifts to pay for his supplies and his clothes. When he decided to study civil engineering at the university, I sold Michael's car that I had kept all those years. I did not care. The only thing that mattered was that my son had a future, and he knew it. He always thanked me. "Mom, when I graduate and get a job, I am going to buy you a house, a big house with a garden, and you will not have to teach anymore if you do not want to. I promise." I cried when he told me that. I hugged him so tight he laughed. "Mommy, you are suffocating me. It is just that I love you so much, Daniel, so much. And I love you, Mom. Always, always." That word stayed engraved in my heart. Years passed. Daniel graduated with honors, got a job at a major construction company, started earning well, and kept his promise. He bought me a house. It was not huge, but it had 3 bedrooms, a small garden with rose bushes, and a large kitchen where I could make my coffee every morning. "It is yours, Mom," he told me the day he gave me the keys. "All yours." That night we cried together again, but this time from happiness. Daniel came to visit me every weekend. He arrived on Saturday morning with pastries from the local bakery. We sat in the garden, drank coffee, and talked about everything, about his work, his projects, his dreams. We never talked about women. Daniel was shy about that. He had some girlfriends in college, but nothing serious, until he met Emily. It was at a company party, he told me. She worked in human resources. She was pretty self-confident, always dressed up. Everything opposite to Daniel, who was rather reserved and simple. "Mom, I think I fell in love," he told me one Saturday with a shy smile. My heart filled with joy. "Really, tell me." He talked about Emily for hours, about how she made him laugh, how he felt special when he was with her, how she made him feel brave. "I want you to meet her," he said. "Of course, my love. Bring her whenever you want." The first time Emily came to my house, she arrived with a bouquet of roses. "Mrs. Kathy, nice to meet you. Daniel has spoken so much about you." She smiled, but her smile did not reach her eyes. I made my special roast that day, my specialty. Daniel ate with gusto, but Emily barely tasted it. "It is just that I am watching my figure," she said, caressing her flat stomach. During the meal, Emily talked a lot about her job, her trips, her expensive tastes. She mentioned several times that she liked fine things, that she was used to a certain level. Daniel looked at her mesmerized. I smiled, but something inside me felt uncomfortable. When they left, Daniel hugged me. "Is she not incredible, Mom?" She is very pretty," I replied, choosing my words carefully. "But there is no but my love. If you are happy, I am happy." I lied because there was a but. Something about Emily made me feel uneasy. The way she looked at my house as if evaluating it, the way she talked about money constantly, the way she touched Daniel as if he were a possession. But I stayed silent because I did not want to be that mother-in-law, the meddling mother-in-law who ruins relationships. I just wanted my son to be happy. Daniel and Emily started dating seriously. He took her to expensive restaurants he could barely afford. He bought her clothes, perfumes, jewelry. I saw how his bank account was emptying, but I said nothing. "Mom, I think I'm going to ask her to marry me." He told me one afternoon 6 months after starting to date her. My stomach tightened. "So soon, when she is the one you know," he said with that innocence he always had. "Daniel, are you sure you barely know her?" "I know her enough. I love her, Mom, and she loves me." What could I say? He was my son, my adult son. He had the right to make his own decisions. "Then I support you," I said finally. "I will always support you." They got married 4 months later, a big wedding in an elegant hall downtown. Emily wanted everything perfect. Imported flowers, 3-course menu live orchestra. Daniel had to take out a loan to pay for everything. I was at the wedding, sitting in the front row in my blue dress I had bought at the department store. I watched my son at the altar, so handsome in his suit, smiling while he waited for his bride. And when Emily entered in her super expensive white dress, her long veil, her bouquet of white roses, Everyone sighed. She was beautiful. I could not deny that, but I could not stop feeling a knot in my stomach. Something was not right. Something in the way Emily walked toward the altar with that perfect smile seemed fake to me. When the priest asked if anyone had any objection to this marriage, there was a long silence, and I, may God forgive me, almost raised my hand, but I did not. I stayed quiet, smiling like a mother is supposed to smile at her son's wedding. And now, years later, sitting in my car outside the church where I had just been kicked out of that same son's funeral, I wonder what if I had spoken. What if I had said what I felt? Would Daniel still be alive? My son's audio played over and over in my mind. Mom, the boy is not mine. I closed my eyes. The tears fell again. After the wedding, Daniel changed. Not immediately. It was little by little. Like when a plant dries up without you realizing it until one day it has no leaves left. At first he kept coming on Saturdays, but he no longer arrived just with pastries. He arrived stressed, worried. He told me that Emily wanted to move to a bigger house, that they needed a new car, that she was used to another lifestyle. I am working overtime, Mom. I want to give her what she deserves. Daniel, what you deserve is to rest. You look tired. I am fine, he said, but his eyes had deep circles. The visits became spaced out, once every 2 weeks, then once a month. Emily always had plans, dinners with her friends, weekend trips, social events. I am sorry, Mom. Emily organized a lunch with her coworkers. Do not worry, my love. Another day. But that other day took longer and longer to arrive. When Emily got pregnant, Daniel was excited. He called me crying with happiness. I am going to be a dad, Mom. You are going to be a grandma. My heart filled with joy. Oh, my boy, what a blessing I went to visit them when Emily was 5 months along. I brought baby clothes I had knitted myself, little sweaters, hats, booties, all in yellow because they still did not know if it would be a boy or a girl. Emily looked at the clothes and smiled politely. How cute, Kathy, thanks. But later, I heard her tell Daniel, I hope your mom understands that we are going to buy brand name clothes for the baby. I am not going to dress my son in hand-knitted things. I felt like I had been slapped. But again, I stayed silent. A boy was born. Matthew. Beautiful. Chubby with big eyes. When I held him for the first time in the hospital, I felt that unconditional love that only a grandmother can feel. Hello, my darling, I whispered. I am your Grandma Kathy. The baby looked at me and yawned, and I fell in love. But Emily did not let me see him much. She always had excuses. He is sleeping. He is on his schedule. The pediatrician said he should not be exposed to many people. Daniel tried to mediate. Mom, why do not you come next weekend? That way you can spend more time with Matthew. But when the weekend arrived, Emily had planned something else. An outing, a visit to her parents, a trip. My visits became shorter and shorter, more uncomfortable. Emily looked at me coldly. She complained about everything, about how I held the baby, about how I talked to him, about the toys I bought him. Kathy, that is not safe for a baby his age. Kathy, you do not heat the milk like that. Kathy, you better let me do it. And Daniel, my poor Daniel, was in the middle, trying to please the 2 women in his life, more and more tired, thinner and thinner, more and more absent, until one day he stopped coming completely. Weeks passed. I called him and he did not answer. I sent him messages and he replied with one word. I am busy, Mom, talk later. All good. But I knew nothing was good. And then 2 months ago, I received that message. That audio that was now the only thing I had left of my son. His voice sounded different, broken, scared. Mom, I need to tell you something important. I listened to it so many times I memorized it. Every word, every pause, every shaky breath. Daniel had discovered something terrible, and he needed my help. But 2 days later, came the accident. And now, he was dead. And Emily had kicked me out of his funeral saying he hated me. But I had the truth on my phone. I had his last confession, his last cry for help, and even though my whole body hurt, even though my heart was broken into 1,000 pieces, I knew what I had to do. I had to find out what really happened to my son. I had to fulfill his last wish. I was not going to let Emily win with her lies, because a mother never abandons her son, not even when that son is no longer here. The days after the funeral were the darkest of my life. I locked myself in my house. I closed the curtains, turned off the phone. I did not want to see anyone. I did not want to talk to anyone. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the scene over and over. Emily in front of me with that cold stare, saying those words that had pierced me like knives. He told me he hated you. A lie. I knew it was a lie. I had Daniel's audio. I had proof that my son needed me, that he trusted me, that he loved me. But still, it still hurt, because the people who were at that funeral had left with that image, with that lie. They thought I was a bad mother, that I had abandoned my son, that I deserved it. The neighbors stopped greeting me. When I went out to buy bread, they looked down. I heard their whispers. Poor Daniel. They say his mom never loved him. The wife said he hated her. How sad, right, dying, knowing that your own mother? They did not finish the sentence, but I heard it complete in my head. One afternoon, Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor of a lifetime, knocked on my door. She was carrying a container of chicken soup. "Kathy, I know you are going through a hard time. I brought you this." "Thank you, Mrs. Higgins," I said, taking the container with trembling hands. She hesitated a moment, then she asked in a low voice, "Is it true what they say, that you and Daniel—" I did not let her finish. "It is not true. Nothing Emily said is true." Mrs. Higgins looked at me with pity. That look that hurts more than hate. Oh, Kathy, sometimes we mothers do not realize the mistakes we make with our children. I closed the door without saying goodbye. I spent that night crying on the sofa with the soup untouched on the table. I was not even hungry. I had not been hungry since the funeral. But then, in the middle of that ocean of pain, I remembered something. The audio. Daniel had asked me to go to his house. "Come tomorrow when she is not there. It is urgent." I never went because the next day was the accident, but Daniel had said he had proof that he needed to show me something. What if that proof was still there? What if it was still in his house? I sat up straight on the sofa. My heart started beating faster. Emily lived in the house Daniel had bought. A nice house in a gated community in the suburbs, 2 stories with a small but well-kept garden. Daniel had been so proud when he bought it. "It is our house, Mom. The place where we are going to raise our children. Children. Plural." Because Daniel wanted a big family. He wanted to fill that house with laughter and love. But there was only one son, Matthew. The boy, who according to Daniel was not his. I got up from the sofa. I walked to my bedroom. I took the phone out of the drawer where I had kept it and turned it on. I had 37 missed calls, messages from people I knew and people I did not know, some of condolences, others of morbid curiosity. I ignored everything and looked for Emily's contact. My fingers trembled over the screen. What was I going to tell her? That I wanted to enter her house, to look for evidence, that I suspected she had something to do with my son's death. No, I had to be smarter. I took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "What do you want, Kathy?" Her voice sounded cold, annoyed. "Emily, I wanted to apologize." Silence on the other end. "Apologize, yes, for what happened at the funeral. I understand it was a very difficult moment for you. I should not have made a scene." More silence. I could imagine her on the other end, surprised, trying to understand what was happening. "Well, okay," she said finally with a tone trying to sound magnanimous. "We were all upset. Yes, and I also wanted to ask you if I could come over to see Matthew just for a little while to say goodbye to him properly, because Daniel would have wanted me to be close to his son." Another long pause. I do not know Kathy Matthew is very little. I do not want to confuse him with so many people coming and going. Please, Emily, just one visit. Half an hour. I promise I won't cause problems." I heard a sigh on the other end. "Fine, but only half an hour. And it has to be when I say. Tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon, sound good, perfect. I will be there. Thanks, Emily." I hung up before she could change her mind. My heart was beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. I could not believe it had worked. I was going to enter that house. I was going to be able to look for what Daniel wanted to show me, but I had to be careful. Very careful. I did not sleep that night. I stayed awake thinking about every detail. Where would Daniel have hidden the evidence? In his study, on his computer. In some secret place only he knew, I remembered how Daniel was as a child. He always kept his treasures in special places. He had a small metal box where he kept his favorite marbles, his baseball stickers, the letters I wrote him when he went to camp. "Why do you keep all this, my love?" I asked him once. "Because they are important, Mommy. They are my memories. And memories must be kept well so they are never lost. My boy, my sweet boy. Where would you have kept something so important, Daniel?" Where the next day I got ready carefully, I put on a discreet gray dress. I put on light makeup so as not to look so haggard. I had to look like a normal grandmother visiting her grandson, not a woman looking for evidence of a possible crime. I arrived at Emily's house exactly at 4. I rang the doorbell and waited. The door opened, and there she was. Emily, perfect as always, flawless makeup hair tied back in an elegant ponytail, expensive clothes. She did not look like a grieving widow. She looked like a woman ready to go out to lunch with friends. "You are punctual," she said without smiling. "Yes, thank you for seeing me." She let me in. The house smelled clean of expensive cleaning products. Everything was tidy as if it were a showroom and not a home. "Matthew is napping," Emily said, walking toward the living room, but he is about to wake up. I sat on the sofa Daniel and I had chosen together. He wanted a comfortable one, beige. Emily had insisted on a white, modern, uncomfortable one. Of course, Emily won. "Want coffee?" she asked, but her tone made it clear she expected me to say no. "No thanks, I am fine." She sat opposite me, crossing her legs elegantly. She watched me with that cold look I already knew. "So how have you been?" she asked, but it sounded more like protocol than genuine interest. As you can imagine, destroyed. "Yes, well, we all are." She looked at her nails perfectly manicured. "It has been very hard having to organize everything alone. The funeral, the insurance papers, the accounts. My son had been dead barely a week, and she was already thinking about money. If you need help with anything, I started to say, No, everything is under control. Daniel was very organized with his affairs. He left everything in order." Something in the way she said it made my hair stand on end. At that moment, we heard crying from upstairs. Matthew had woken up. "I will get him," Emily said, standing up. "Can I go with you?" I asked quickly. She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but only to his room. The rest of the upstairs is very messy." We went up the stairs. I knew that house. I had visited it so many times when Daniel still welcomed me with pleasure. The master bedroom was at the end of the hall. Daniel's study was on the left and the baby's room on the right. Emily went into Matthew's room and took him out of his crib. The boy was crying, his little face red and wrinkled. There, my love." Emily told him with a sweet voice I did not recognize in her. "You are awake." Seeing him broke my heart. Matthew had grown since the last time I saw him. He was almost 2 years old. His hair was blonde, curly, his eyes green, nothing like Daniel, nor me, nor anyone in our family. "Can I hold him?" I asked. Emily looked at me, evaluating me. Then she passed him to me. "Just a moment. Then I have to give him his snack." I took Matthew in my arms. He was heavy solid. He smelled like baby powder innocence. "Hello, my darling," I whispered. "I am your grandma." Matthew looked at me with curiosity. He stopped crying. His chubby little fingers touched my face, and in that moment, I felt something strange, a mix of love and sadness, because this child, my blood or not, had lost the only father he knew, the man who cared for him, loved him, raised him as his own, even if he was not his own. "That is enough," Emily said, taking the child from my arms. "I have to prepare his food." We went down again. Emily took Matthew to the kitchen and put him in his high chair. I stayed in the living room, looking around, trying to think. Where to look? How to find what Daniel wanted to show me. My gaze stopped on something familiar. On the shelf next to the television was a photograph. It was of Daniel and me, taken in my garden years ago. He was about 22. He was in college. I was hugging him, and we were both smiling. I got up and walked to the shelf. I took the photograph. Why had Emily left it there? If she hated our relationship so much, why had she not thrown it away? Then I saw it. Behind the photograph, barely visible, was something written on the wooden frame. Carefully, I turned the frame. On the back, in Daniel's small, tight handwriting, it said, "Mom, look in the place where I kept my treasures. You were always the only one who knew where they were. I love you." My breath stopped. The place where he kept his treasures. The metal box. But where would it be now? Daniel was no longer a child. He no longer kept marbles or stickers. I thought fast. I tried to remember. The last time I was in this house before Emily started pushing me away, Daniel had shown me his study. "This is where I work, Mom, when I need to concentrate." It was a small but cozy room. Wooden desk, comfortable chair, full bookshelves. And in a corner, was a box. A carved wooden box I had given him for his graduation. "So you can keep your important things," I had told him. That had to be it. "Emily," I called her, putting the photograph back in its place. "Can I use the bathroom?" "It is next to the kitchen," she replied without turning busy, feeding Matthew. "I prefer to use the one upstairs. I have knee problems bending down, and the one downstairs has a very low toilet." It was a lie, but Emily did not know. "As you wish. It is the first door on the right going up." I went up the stairs as fast as I could without making noise. My heart beat like a drum. I knew this was risky, that if Emily came up and found me in Daniel's study, she would suspect, but I had to try. I reached the second floor. The bathroom was on the right, the study on the left. The door was ajar. I looked down. Nothing could be heard. Emily was still in the kitchen. I entered the study. Everything was the same as the last time I was there. The wooden desk, the bookshelves, the photographs on the walls of buildings Daniel had helped build. And there in the corner was the box, the carved wooden box I had given him. I walked toward it with trembling legs. I knelt down. I opened it. Inside there were papers, lots of papers, documents, photographs. I took one of the papers. It was a bank statement from an account I did not recognize, but the name in the header froze my blood. Emily Mendez and Rick Stevens. Rick Stevens. I did not know that name. I kept looking. There were more statements, bank transfers, large sums of money moving between accounts, and then I found the photographs of Emily with a man, a tall man, dark hair, good looking. They were hugging, kissing in a restaurant in a hotel at a beach. The dates on the photographs were recent, from 6 months ago when Emily was still married to Daniel. My son was right. Emily was cheating on him. But there was more. I found a paternity test, an official document from a lab. It compared Daniel's DNA with Matthew's. The result, 0% probability of paternity. Matthew was not Daniel's son. Tears started falling down my cheeks. My poor son, my poor Daniel. He had discovered all this. He had lived with this terrible truth. And then I found the last thing in the box, a yellow envelope. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a life insurance policy in Daniel's name for $1 million, the beneficiary, Emily Mendez. And next to the policy was a note handwritten in Daniel's handwriting. "Mom, if you are reading this, it is because something happened to me. Emily cheated on me. Matthew is not my son. She has a lover named Rick Stevens. They have been stealing money from me. I discovered she took out a life insurance policy in my name without me knowing. She signed documents with my forged signature. Mom, I am scared. Yesterday, Emily served me dinner and I felt sick, very sick, as if something was not right with the food. I vomited all night. She said it was a stomach virus, but I know it wasn't. I'm going to confront her tomorrow. I am going to ask for a divorce, and I am going to report all this to the police. But if something happens to me before, please, Mom, please do not let her get away with it. I love you more than anything in this world. You were the best mother I could have. Forgive me for pushing you away. She manipulated me, made me believe you wanted to control my life, but I always knew the truth. I always loved you. Mom, Daniel. The letter fell from my hands. I could not breathe. I could not think. My son knew he was in danger, and 2 days later he was dead. A car accident. But it was not an accident. They killed him. Emily killed him. Kathy. Emily's voice from below made me jump. Are you okay? You have been up there a long time. I reacted fast. I took the letter. I took the photographs. I took the DNA test. I put everything in my purse. Coming, I shouted, trying to sound normal. I closed the box. I left the study. I went into the bathroom and flushed the toilet so it would sound. I went down the stairs with trembling legs. Emily was at the foot of the stairs looking at me with suspicion. Sure you are okay? You look pale. Yes, it is hard being here. In Daniel's house, without him. Her expression softened slightly. I know. For me too. Liar. Damn liar. I think I better go, I said, walking toward the door. I thought you wanted to spend more time with Matthew. Yes, but I feel sick. I better come back another day. She did not insist. She opened the door. Sure, whenever you want. I left that house as fast as I could without running. I got into my car. I started it. And only when I was 5 blocks away did I allow myself to breathe. I parked on a random street. I took the papers out of my purse. I checked them again. Everything was there. All the evidence. Everything he had discovered. Emily had cheated on him. She had robbed him. She had forged documents, and when Daniel discovered everything and confronted her, she killed him, or had him killed. While I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me from. Have you also felt that someone betrayed you so deeply? Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know I am not alone in this. I arrived home shaking. I parked the car in the driveway and stayed there, sitting, gripping the steering wheel, with my hands trying to process everything I had just discovered. My son had been murdered. It was not an accident. It was not bad luck. It was not fate. It was Emily, that woman who had entered our lives with her perfect smile and sweet words, that woman who had pretended to be the loving wife, that woman who now played the role of the grieving widow. She was a murderer. And no one knew except me. I entered my house almost running. I locked the door, closed the curtains. My heart was beating so hard I felt it was going to burst. I took the papers out of my purse and spread them on the dining table. It was all there. The complete truth. Photographs of Emily with her lover Rick. Bank statements showing the theft. The DNA test confirming Matthew was not Daniel's son. The insurance policy for $1 million, and the letter, that devastating letter where my son asked me for help. Please, Mom, please do not let her get away with it. I took the letter with trembling hands. I read it once more, and another, and another. Every word was a dagger in my heart. Daniel knew he was in danger. He knew Emily was capable of anything, and even so, he confronted her. My brave son, my noble son, my son who always believed in doing the right thing. And that killed him. Tears started falling on the paper, staining the ink. I put it away quickly before ruining it. It was evidence I had to protect. But then a terrifying question filled my mind. What if Emily realized the documents were missing? It had been barely 10 minutes since I left her house. How long would it take her to check the box, to notice the most compromising things were no longer there? My phone rang. I almost dropped it from the scare. I looked at the screen. It was an unknown number. My first instinct was not to answer, but something made me slide my finger and answer. Yes, Mrs. Kathy Smith. It was a male voice. Formal. Serious? Yes. It is me. Who is speaking? I am Detective Miller from the District Attorney's Office. I am investigating your son's car accident. Daniel Smith. My mouth went dry. Investigating? I thought it had been an accident. We are doing some routine verifications. I would like to ask you some questions. Could I come by your home tomorrow? I looked at the papers spread on my table. The evidence, the truth. Yes, sure. What time is 10 in the morning? Okay? Yes. I will wait for you here. He hung up. I stayed looking at the phone with a racing heart. A detective, investigating the accident. Did that mean they suspected something? Or was it just routine like he had said, I had to think? I had to think clearly. If I showed the evidence to the detective, they could arrest Emily. They could get justice for Daniel. But what if they did not believe me? What if they thought I was just a resentful mother inventing stories? After all, Emily had done a perfect job destroying my reputation at the funeral. Everyone thought Daniel hated me. Who would believe me about her? Besides, if Emily found out I had the evidence, what would stop me from being her next victim? The thought froze my blood. Emily had already killed once. Why wouldn't she do it again? I quickly gathered all the papers. I put them in a large envelope. I had to hide them. I had to protect them. But where I walked through the whole house looking for the perfect place, under the mattress, no too obvious. In the attic, hard to access quickly if I needed them. Then I saw my garden through the kitchen window, the rose bushes. The garden Daniel had helped me plant. There was a large pot in the corner, a clay pot with a rose bush that never bloomed well. Daniel always said we should move it. That rose bush needs more sun, Mom. It is very sad there in the corner. I went out to the garden. Evening was falling. The sky was dyed orange and pink. It was cold. I dug out the dirt from the pot with my own hands until I made a deep hole. I wrapped the envelope with the evidence in a plastic bag to protect it from moisture. I buried it. I put the dirt back on top, smoothed the surface. No one would suspect that there under a sad rose bush was the truth about a murder. I went back inside the house and washed my hands. They had dirt under the nails. I scrubbed them with soap until they were clean. Then I sat on the sofa and tried to calm my breathing. What was I going to do? What was I going to tell the detective tomorrow? The truth was, I was scared. Very scared. I was not a brave woman. I was not a detective or a lawyer. I was just a retired English teacher of 56 years who had just lost her only son. How was I supposed to face a murderer? That night, I did not sleep. I stayed awake in the darkness of my bedroom, staring at the ceiling, listening to every noise in the house. Every creak of wood made me jump. Every movement of branches against the window made me hold my breath. What if Emily came for me? What if she already knew I had the evidence? At 3 a.m, I heard a noise outside, a car parking on the street. I jumped out of bed. I walked to the window without turning on the light. I parted the curtain slightly. It was a taxi. Someone getting off in front of the neighbor's house. A young man arriving late from a party. I breathed relieved, but my heart was still beating like crazy. This could not go on like this. I could not live with this constant terror. I had to do something. But what? When dawn finally broke, I got up exhausted. I had not rested at all. I had deep circles under my eyes and my head hurt. I made coffee. Strong coffee. I needed to be alert for when the detective arrived. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. He was early. I looked through the peephole. It was a man of about 45. Robust build, short hair with gray at the temples. He was wearing a blue shirt and dress pants. He showed a badge. I opened the door. Mrs. Smith, Yes. You are Detective Miller. That is right. He showed me the badge closer. Can I come in? Sure. Come in. He entered my living room, looked around with that cop look that analyzes everything. I felt exposed, vulnerable. Want coffee? I asked, trying to sound normal. No thanks. I won't take much of your time. We sat down. He took a small notebook out of his pocket. As I mentioned on the phone, I'm investigating your son's accident. I just have some routine questions. I nodded, hands clenched on my lap. When was the last time you spoke with Daniel? I thought about the audio about that desperate message I kept on my phone. About 2 weeks ago. He sent me a message. And how did he seem? Worried, nervous, normal. I hesitated. This was my chance. I could tell him everything. I could tell him about the message, about Daniel's suspicions, about the evidence. But then I thought of Emily, her coldness, her ability to manipulate everyone. What if the detective did not believe me? What if he thought I was crazy? What if he told Emily what I had said? I noticed him. Normal. I lied, busy with work, but normal. The detective wrote something down. Do you know if your son had problems with anyone? Enemies, conflicts, another chance, another door opening. But I was still paralyzed by fear. Not that I know of. Daniel was a good man. Everyone loved him, and his relationship with his wife. How was it? My throat went dry. Well, I thought it was fine. Emily seemed to love him very much. More lies. Every word was a betrayal to my son. The detective looked me straight in the eyes. Mrs. Smith, I was told there was an incident at the funeral, that your son's wife asked you to leave. Is that true? I looked down. The humiliation returned like a wave. Yes, it is true. Why, she said Daniel hated me, that I had been a bad mother. Tears began to form in my eyes, but it is not true. I loved my son more than anything in this world. The detective nodded slowly. He wrote something else down. Do you think it was an accident, detective? I asked suddenly. He looked up, surprised by my question. Why do you ask me that? I regretted it immediately. No, for nothing. It is just that it is hard to believe. Daniel was a very careful driver. Accidents happen, ma'am, even to the most careful drivers. He stood up. Well, I think that is all for now. If you remember anything else, anything that might be relevant, please call me. He gave me a card with his number. I walked him to the door. When he left, I stayed there standing with his card in my hand, feeling like the worst mother in the world. I had the chance to speak, to tell the truth, to get justice for Daniel, and I did not. Out of cowardice, out of fear. I dropped onto the sofa and cried, Forgive me, Daniel, forgive me, my love. I am a coward. But even while I cried, a part of me knew I had made the right decision. I could not just go to the police without being sure. I needed more. I needed to understand better what had happened. I needed a plan, because if I accused Emily without enough proof, she would get away with it. And me, I would end up looking like a crazy old woman obsessed. No, I had to be smarter. The following days were strange. I tried to keep a normal routine. Went to the market, greeted the neighbors, watered my plants. But inside, I was broken. Inside, I carried a secret that weighed like a mountain. One afternoon, while making cinnamon coffee, that coffee Daniel liked so much, I heard voices outside. I peeked out the window. It was Mrs. Higgins talking to another neighbor, Mrs. Carmen. Poor Emily, Mrs. Higgins was saying, so young and already a widow and with a small child. Yes, what a tragedy. But they say Daniel left her a good insurance policy. At least financially, she will be okay. Oh yeah, how much they say, $1 million. I dropped the cup of coffee I had in my hand. It smashed against the floor, breaking into 1,000 pieces. $1 million. The same amount that was in the policy I found. The same money Emily had killed my son for. And now everyone knew. And instead of suspecting, they pitied her. Poor Emily. No one said poor Daniel. No one said poor Kathy. Only poor Emily. I cleaned the coffee from the floor with trembling hands, the ceramic pieces cut. I saw blood mixing with the dark liquid. It was like a metaphor for my life. Broken bleeding mixed with pain. That night, sitting alone in my kitchen, I made a decision. I was not going to stay silent forever. I was not going to let Emily win. But I was not going to act impulsively either. I was going to be patient. I was going to watch. I was going to wait for the right moment. Because murderers make mistakes. They always make mistakes. And when Emily made hers, I would be there to see it. I took out my phone and looked for Emily's Facebook profile. I had blocked it after the funeral, but now I unblocked it. I needed to know what she was doing. I needed to watch her. Her last post was from 2 hours ago, a photo of her with Matthew, both smiling. The boy was holding a new teddy bear. She was hugging him. The caption read, "Although the pain consumes us, we move forward for you, my love. Daddy will always be in our hearts." Widow, strong mom moving forward. It made me nauseous. The comments were full of support. "You are so strong, Emily. How brave you are. God bless you." No one knew the truth. No one knew that woman was a liar, a thief, a murderer. But I did know. And although for now I had to be silent, although for now I had to feign weakness someday, very soon the truth would come to light. Because justice takes time, but it arrives. And I was going to make sure it arrived. For you, Daniel. For you, my love. I promise you. 2 weeks after the funeral, I received an unexpected call. It was a number I did not recognize, but this time I answered without fear. Mrs. Kathy Smith. Yes, who is speaking? My name is Steve Montoya. I am an accountant. I worked with your son, Daniel. My heart started beating faster. Yes, ma'am. I need to speak with you. It is important. It has to do with things Daniel discovered before he died. I sat up straight on the sofa. What things I cannot talk on the phone? Can we meet in a public place? Yes. Yes, of course. When tomorrow? At the coffee shop on Main Street at 4 p.m. I will be there. He hung up. I stayed looking at the phone with a racing heart. An accountant, someone who worked with Daniel, someone who knew something. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. I was not alone. There was someone else who knew the truth, or at least part of it. That night, I slept a little better. Not much, but a little. And when I woke up the next morning, I felt something different in my chest. It was no longer just pain. It was no longer just fear. It was determination. Emily had made her first mistake. She had left witnesses. She had left traces. And I was going to follow every one of them until I reached the complete truth, until my son could rest in peace, until justice finally was done. The coffee shop on Main Street was full when I arrived. It was a busy place with outdoor tables under the trees and the constant sound of conversations mixing with traffic noise. I chose a table in the corner from where I could see the entrance. I arrived 15 minutes before the agreed time. I ordered a black coffee I barely touched. My hands trembled slightly around the cup. Who was this Steve Montoya? What exactly did he know? Why had he waited so long to contact me? And the most terrifying question, could I trust him at 4 o'clock exactly? A man entered the coffee shop. He would be about 35 thin, with glasses, dressed in a white shirt and dress pants. He looked nervous. His eyes scanned the place until they met mine. He walked toward my table. Mrs. Kathy, yes. Steve. He nodded and sat opposite me. He looked around before speaking as if afraid someone was listening to us. Thank you for coming, he said in a low voice. You said you had information about my son. Yes, He paused. A waitress approached and he ordered a coffee. He waited for her to walk away before continuing. I was Daniel's accountant. Well, rather for the company where he worked, but I also helped him with his personal finances. And, ma'am, about 3 months ago, Daniel came to my office very worried. He asked me to check his bank accounts because he suspected something was not right. My breathing accelerated. What did he find? Steve took a thin folder out of his briefcase. He put it on the table but did not open it yet. I found irregularities many. Transfers Daniel had not authorized, large cash withdrawals he had not made. Someone was accessing his accounts without his permission. "Emily," I said in a low voice. Steve nodded. That is what Daniel suspected. He asked me to investigate further. We discovered she had a joint bank account with another man, a certain Rick Stevens, the lover, the man in the photographs. How much money did she steal from him? In total, we estimate around $50,000 over the course of 2 years. I closed my eyes. $50,000. The money Daniel had earned working overtime, sacrificing his health, his time, his life. Did you tell Daniel? Yes. I showed him all the evidence. He was devastated. He could not believe the woman he loved was betraying him that way. And what did he do? He asked me to prepare a lawsuit. He was going to divorce her and file charges for fraud. He even asked me to investigate Rick Stevens. And did you? Steve opened the folder. He took out several papers and slid them toward me. Rick Stevens, 38 years old, criminal record for bank fraud. Served 3 years in prison 5 years ago. Since then, he has been involved in several scam schemes, although they have never been able to prove anything. I looked at the attached photograph. It was the same man from the photos I found in Daniel's box. Charming smile, cold eyes. How did Emily meet him that I do not know? But from what I could find out, they have been going out for at least 3 years, since before the child was born. 3 years. Matthew was almost 2. The math was clear. Daniel also discovered the boy wasn't his right. Steve looked at me surprised. You knew I found a paternity test. Daniel left me. He left me some things before dying. Steve nodded slowly. Yes, Daniel took the test about 2 months ago. He was devastated by the results, but it also gave him the strength he needed to take action. What kind of action? He was going to confront Emily. He was going to ask her for a divorce. He was going to sue her for fraud and adultery. And he was also going to report Rick Stevens to the authorities for his illegal activities. When was he going to do all that? Steve looked down. The week he died, silence fell over us like a concrete slab. Do you think they killed him? I said finally. Steve looked up. His eyes showed fear. Ma'am, I am not a police officer. I am not a detective. I am just an accountant. But yes, I think it was too much of a coincidence. Did you tell the police I tried? I went to the precinct after the funeral. But the detective in charge said there was no evidence it was anything other than an accident, that the brakes failed, that kind of thing happens. The brakes failed. That is what the official report says. Daniel was on the interstate very early in the morning. Apparently, the brakes stopped working on a curve. The car went off the road and fell down a ravine. He died on impact. What was Daniel doing on the interstate so early? Steve frowned. I do not know. That also seemed strange to me. That day, he did not have work. It was Saturday, and Daniel never mentioned he was going to travel. My mind started working quickly. Was Emily with him? No. She said Daniel left alone very early, that he did not say where he was going, and no one questioned that. Apparently not. Everyone assumed maybe he was going to visit a site or something work-related. Something did not add up. Daniel never took work trips without notifying. He was methodical, organized. He always told me where he was going. Did they check the car? Did they do any mechanical inspection? The car was destroyed. According to the report, the brakes were in bad condition, worn out. The forensic mechanics said it was negligence in maintenance. That is impossible. Daniel took his car for service religiously every 3 months. I have his receipts. He showed them to me because he was proud of taking good care of his things. Steve nodded. I know. Daniel was very responsible. That is why all this seems so suspicious to me. Do you think someone sabotaged the brakes? I do not know. But if I had to bet, he left the sentence in the air. The waitress returned with Steve's coffee. We both stayed silent until she left. Why did you look for me? I asked finally. Why now? Steve took a sip of his coffee. His hands also trembled slightly. Because I am scared, Mrs. Kathy. Very scared. 2 days ago, someone entered my office. It was at night. They forced the lock. They did not take the computers or the petty cash. They just looked in my files. Were they looking for Daniel's file? That is what I think. Luckily, I had it at my house. I made a copy of everything and kept it in a safe place. But I got scared. If they are willing to break into my office, what else are they willing to do? Did you tell the police? Yes, but without proof of what they were looking for, it just remained as a frustrated robbery. They told me to put a better lock and install cameras. Do you think it was Rick or Emily? I do not know. But someone is trying to erase the trail, and you, as Daniel's mother, need to know the truth. You need to protect yourself. His words froze my blood. Protect myself from what Steve leaned forward. Ma'am, if Emily killed Daniel for the insurance money, you could be an obstacle for her, especially if she suspects you know something. She does not know I know anything. Are you sure I was not? I remembered my visit to her house. How I had gone up to Daniel's study, how I had taken the evidence from the box. Would Emily have noticed? Would she have checked the box after I left? I am not sure of anything, I admitted. Steve took a card out of his pocket. This is my personal number. If you need me, call me. And please be careful. Do not trust anyone. And above all, do not confront Emily alone. I took the card. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for contacting me. Thank you for believing me, for believing in Daniel. Daniel was a good man. He did not deserve what happened to him. He stood up. I have to go. I agreed to meet my wife. But please take care. And if you need help, do not hesitate to call me. He left quickly, looking over his shoulder as if fearing being followed. I was left alone in the coffee shop with the papers on the table and 1,000 questions spinning in my head. The brakes failed. A convenient accident. Just when Daniel was about to expose Emily. It was not a coincidence. It could not be. But how had she done it? Had it been her or had it been Rick? And most importantly, how to prove it? I put the papers in my purse and left the coffee shop. The sun was starting to set. The square was filling with families walking, couples holding hands, children running. Life continued. Normal calm, as if there were no evil in the world. But I knew the truth. There was evil. There were lies. There were murderers walking free, playing the role of victims. When I got home, I did something I had not done in years. I checked all the locks. I verified all the windows. I made sure everything was closed tight. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of being alone in my own house. That night, while preparing something light for dinner, just some beans I didn't feel like eating, I heard my phone ring. It was a message from an unknown number. I know what you did. I dropped the phone from my hands. I picked it up with trembling fingers. I reread the message over and over. I know what you did. Who? Emily, Rick. Someone else. What did they mean? That I took the papers from the box? That I spoke with Steve? I wrote with trembling hands. Who are you? The answer came immediately. Someone who also wants justice. Check your email. I ran to my laptop. I turned it on with clumsy hands. I opened my email. There was a new message. No sender. No subject. Just an attached file. I opened it. It was a video. I pressed play. The image was dark grainy, a security camera. It showed an empty parking lot at night. The date on the page said 3 days before Daniel's accident. Then 2 figures appeared, a woman and a man. They walked toward a car. Daniel's car. I recognized it immediately. A gray Honda Civic he had bought 2 years ago. The camera was far, but I could see enough. The man crouched next to the tires. He did something under the car. He worked there for several minutes while the woman stood guard. Then they left. They walked out of the frame. I rewound the video, paused at the moment where their faces could be seen more clearly. The woman was Emily. The man was Rick. My heart beat so hard I thought it was going to burst. There it was, the proof they had sabotaged Daniel's car. They had killed him, premeditatedly. To my phone, I wrote. "Who are you? Where did you get this?" The answer took a few minutes. "It does not matter who I am. What matters is that now you have the proof. But be careful. They are dangerous. And if they suspect you have this, they will come for you. Why are you sending it to me? Because Daniel was my friend, and because he deserves justice. But I cannot do anything. I have a family. I am scared. You are his mother. You are the only one who can do this without them suspecting too much. But do it smartly. Do not act on impulse. And do not trust the police yet. There is someone helping them. Someone who made the original video disappear from the building's security cameras, who I do not know, but be careful. Very careful." The messages stopped. No more answers arrived, although I wrote several times. I stayed sitting in my kitchen watching the video over and over. Emily and Rick, sabotaging the car, planning my son's murder, and someone in the police covering up the evidence. This was bigger than I thought, more dangerous. But now I had everything. The financial evidence, the paternity test, the photographs, Daniel's letter, and now the video. It was enough. It had to be. But the question was what to do with all this. If I went to the police and there was someone corrupt helping Emily, the evidence could disappear, and I could end up dead. I had to think. I had to plan carefully. I saved the video on a USB drive. I made 3 copies. One I hid along with the other documents under the rose bush in the garden. Another I kept inside an old book on my bookshelf. The third I put inside a tea box I never used in the pantry. If something happened to me, at least the evidence would exist somewhere. But first I needed a plan. That night, instead of sleeping, I sat down with a notebook and a pencil. I wrote down everything I knew, everything I had discovered, all the loose ends. Emily cheated on Daniel with Rick Stevens. They stole $50,000 in 2 years. Matthew was not Daniel's son. They took out a life insurance policy in Daniel's name for $1 million. 3 days before the accident, they sabotaged his car. Someone in the police was covering everything up. The pattern was clear. They had planned this for a long time. It was not a crime of passion. It was calculated, cold, premeditated, and they almost got away with it. Almost. Because they did not count on a stubborn mother who was not going to rest until the truth came to light. I looked at Daniel's photograph I had in my living room. My smiling son, young, full of life. "I am going to do this, my love." I told the photograph out loud. "I am going to make them pay for what they did to you. I promise." And although it was late at night and the house was silent, I swear I felt something. A soft presence, a warmth in my heart. As if Daniel were telling me I was not alone. As if he were giving me the strength I needed to keep going. I closed my notebook. I turned off the lights. Tomorrow would be another day. One day closer to justice. One day closer to fulfilling my promise. The following days were the hardest of my life. I lived with a secret that burned me inside. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the video. Emily and Rick crouching next to my son's car. Sabotaging the brakes. Planning his death. Murderers. And I had the proof. But I could not do anything yet. Because if I acted impulsively, if I ran to the police without a plan, everything could go wrong. The evidence could disappear. I could end up like Daniel, dead in an accident. So I waited. I watched. I became someone I never thought I would be. A woman who plans, who calculates, who waits for the perfect moment. I followed Emily's profile on social media. She posted constantly. Photos with Matthew. Messages about moving forward. Motivational quotes about widowhood and strength. Although the path is painful, I know Daniel would want me to be happy. Little by little, day by day, we are healing. Widow. Inner strength. Eternal love. Her posts gave me nausea, but I read them all, because at some point in one of them, she would make a mistake. Murderers always make mistakes. 2 weeks after the meeting with Steve, I received another call from Detective Miller, Mrs. "Smith, could you come by the office? I have some additional questions. My heart accelerated. What kind of questions I prefer to talk in person. Tomorrow at 11 sound good. Yes, I will be there. That night I did not sleep. What would he want to ask me? Had he discovered something new? Or had Emily said something that made him suspect me? The next morning I got ready carefully. Black pants, gray blouse, hair tied back. I wanted to look respectable, reliable. Detective Miller's office was in an old building downtown. I went up 3 floors by stairs that smelled of damp and disinfectant. His office was small, full of files and papers. A dirty window let in weak light. "Mrs. Smith, thank you for coming." He indicated a chair in front of his desk. I sat down, hands on my lap, trying to look calm, although my heart beat like a drum. "Tell me, Detective, how can I help you?" He leaned back in his chair, watching me with those police eyes that see everything. "I have been reviewing your son's case, and there are some things that do not add up." "Like what?" "Well, to start, the mechanical report says the brakes were worn out, but I got your son's maintenance records. He took the car for service just 2 months ago. The brakes were perfect. My breathing accelerated. Then how is it possible they failed?" "That is the question." "Right." He took a folder from his desk. The life insurance also caught my attention. $1 million. That is a lot of money. "I did not know about that insurance," I said honestly. "Interesting, because the policy was taken out just 6 months ago, and the signature he took out a paper and showed it to me. Is that your son's signature?" I looked at the document. The signature said Daniel Smith, but something about it looked weird, forced, as if someone had tried to imitate it. "I'm not sure." "It looks like his signature, but I'm not sure either. That is why I sent the policy to be analyzed by a handwriting expert." "And what did he find that it was probably forged?" "The stroke pressure is inconsistent. The angle of some letters does not match other verified signatures of your son." I stayed silent. The detective knew. He was investigating for real. "Detective," I said finally with a trembling voice, "do you think it was not an accident?" He looked me straight in the eyes. "Mrs. Smith, I have been a detective for 20 years, and I have seen many things, coincidences, genuine accidents. But this has too many red flags." "Like which ones?" "A large life insurance taken out recently with a suspicious signature. Brakes that fail right after being in perfect condition. A young man healthy with no reason to have an accident. And on top of that," he paused, "on top of that, the wife who receives $1 million and does not shed a single tear. You have seen her. I interviewed her several times. She is sad, yes. Or so she says. But there is something about her that does not convince me. Too controlled, too focused on the insurance paperwork. This was the moment. This was the moment to decide if I trusted him or not." I took a deep breath. "Detective, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Is anyone else investigating this case? Someone higher ranking or some other department?" He frowned. "No, just me." "Why? Because—" I hesitated. The words of the anonymous message resonated in my mind. There was someone helping them, someone who made the original video disappear. What video now? There was no turning back. "Detective, can I trust you?" He leaned forward. "Ma'am, if your son was murdered, I give you my word that I am going to do everything in my power to get justice. But I need you to trust me. If you know something, you have to tell me." I looked him in the eyes. I tried to read in them to see if he was genuine or if this was a trap. But the only thing I saw was honesty, determination, the desire to do the right thing. I took my purse. I took out an envelope I had prepared that morning just in case. I found some things in my son's house, things he wanted me to see. I passed him the envelope. Inside were copies of everything, the photographs of Emily with Rick, the statements showing the theft, the paternity test, Daniel's letter. The detective opened the envelope. He started reviewing. His expression changed as he read, from curiosity to surprise, from surprise to anger. "Where did you get all this?" My son left it hidden. He sent me a message asking for help, but before I could go see him, he had the accident. The detective kept reviewing. He stopped at Daniel's letter. He read it completely. When he finished, his eyes were wet. "This son of a—" he murmured. Then he looked at me. "Sorry, ma'am, but this changes everything." "There is more," I said. I took the USB drive out of my purse. "I received this 2 weeks ago from someone anonymous. He said he was a friend of Daniel. I gave him the USB." He connected it to his computer. He opened the video. I saw how his face transformed while watching the images. Emily and Rick sabotaging the car. When the video ended, the detective leaned back in his chair. He ran his hands over his face. "My God," he said. "They killed him. They really killed him." Tears started falling down my cheeks. Hearing someone else say it out loud made it more real, more terrible. "Yes," I whispered. "And she is out there free playing the perfect widow, collecting $1 million stained with blood." The detective stood up. He walked to the window. He stayed there, standing, looking out, processing everything. "Mrs. Smith, this is enough to arrest her. We have evidence of fraud, of adultery. And with this video, we have evidence of premeditated homicide. But you said someone made the original security camera video disappear. Who was it?" He turned to me. "I do not know, but I am going to find out. And if there is someone corrupt in the department, I am going to discover them." "What are you going to do now? First, I am going to verify the authenticity of this video. I need to make sure it is legitimate. Then I am going to get an arrest warrant." And then his eyes hardened. "Then I am going to make sure that woman pays for what she did." I felt something like relief. Finally, someone with power believed me. Someone was going to do something. "Detective, I am scared. If Emily finds out I have this evidence, she's not going to find out. No one else is going to know about this until we have everything ready. Meanwhile, you have to act normal. Do not look for her. Do not confront her. Do not do anything that could put her on alert. How long will all this take? If everything goes well, a week, maybe 2. I need to move the pieces correctly. I need to make sure that when we arrest her, there is no way for her to escape." I stood up. "Thank you, detective. Thank you for believing in my son, for believing in me. Your son was innocent. And you are a brave mother. Not many people would do what you did. I left that office feeling something I had not felt in months: hope. For the first time since the funeral, I felt that maybe justice was possible. But that hope lasted exactly 3 days, because on the 3rd day, when I was leaving the supermarket with my groceries, someone approached me in the parking lot. It was a man tall in a dark suit, sunglasses. I did not recognize him. "Mrs. Smith," he said with a deep voice. "Yes, who are you? I am a lawyer. I represent the interests of Mrs. Emily Mendez." My blood froze. "What do you want?" "My client has informed me that you have been harassing her, that you entered her house without permission, that you have been spreading lies about her in the neighborhood. That is not true. She invited me to her house, and I have not spread anything. My client is very affected by these accusations. She is considering putting a restraining order against you. And if you continue with this behavior, we will take more severe legal actions." Legal actions. Why for telling the truth? The man came closer. He lowered his voice. "Mrs. Smith, I do not know what you think you know, but it is in your best interest to leave things as they are. Your son had an accident. It was a tragedy, but keeping on looking for problems is only going to cause you more pain. To you and to everyone involved. Is that a threat? It is advice? For your own good." He left without saying more. He got into a black car that was waiting and drove off. I stayed there, standing in the parking lot, shaking with the grocery bags in my hands. Emily knew, somehow she knew I was investigating. But how much did she know? Did she know about the evidence? Did she know I had spoken with the detective? I got into my car as fast as I could. I started it. I drove home with sweating hands on the steering wheel, constantly looking in the rearview mirror. When I arrived, I checked the whole house, the windows, the doors. Everything was as I had left it, but I no longer felt safe. I called Detective Miller. He sent me straight to voicemail. I left him an urgent message. "Detective, I need to talk to you. Emily sent her lawyer to threaten me. I think she knows something. Please call me as soon as possible." I hung up. I sat in my living room, hugging myself, trying not to panic. What was going to happen now my phone rang? It was an unknown number, the same number that had sent me the video. "Hello, Kathy." It was a male voice, distorted as if speaking through a filter. "Did you give the evidence to the police? Who are you? I already told you. A friend of Daniel. Did you give the evidence to the detective?" "Yes." "Shit." I heard panic in his voice. "Listen to me well. Miller is a good person, but he cannot protect you. There is someone higher up in the chain of command who is with Emily and Rick, someone powerful, who I cannot tell you. But you have to be very careful. Do not go out alone at night. Do not open the door to strangers. And if something happens, if you feel you are in danger, you have to disappear. I cannot disappear. I have to see this through to the end. For Daniel. Daniel is dead, Kathy. And you will be dead too if you are not careful." The line cut off. I was left with the phone in my hand, looking at the blank screen. This was bigger than I thought, more dangerous, and I was in the center of all of it. That night, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea. I did not drink. I just held it between my hands, seeking warmth, seeking comfort. I thought of Daniel, of my sweet son, of everything he had suffered before dying, discovering the betrayal, the deception, the falsehood. And even so, in his last letter, he had told me he loved me, that I had been the best mother. "I love you more than anything in this world." Those words gave me strength. I was not going to give up. I was not going to let fear paralyze me. Because my son had been brave until the end. He had confronted his murderers knowing the danger he ran, and I was going to be just as brave. For him, for his memory, for the justice he deserved. Even if it cost me everything, even if I had to risk my own life. Because some things are worth more than survival. Some things, like a mother's love, are stronger than fear. 5 days passed without news from Detective Miller. 5 days in which I lived as a prisoner in my own house. I barely went out. I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. Until one morning, finally my phone rang. "Mrs. Smith, this is Miller. I need to see you. Today. It is urgent. What happened?" "Not on the phone. Can you come to my office in an hour?" "Yes, I will be there." I arrived early. The detective was waiting for me. His face looked tired, tense. "Sit down, please." I sat down. My hands were shaking. "Did you get the arrest warrant?" He shook his head slowly. "No." My superior rejected it. "What? Why?" He said the video was not enough, that it could have been manipulated, that we needed more evidence. More evidence. We have everything. The photographs, the statements, Daniel's letter, the video. I know, but my boss says it is not enough to charge for homicide. He says everything is circumstantial. His boss is with them, right? The man on the phone was right. Miller ran his hands over his face. "I do not know. Maybe. Or maybe he is just very cautious. But the result is the same. I cannot arrest Emily." "Not yet. Then what do we do?" "We need a confession or a witness, something that ties Emily directly to the sabotage of the car. No one is going to confess. And the only witness is Rick. And he is never going to talk. Maybe yes, if we pressure him correctly." "What do you mean?" The detective leaned forward. "Rick Stevens has a record. He was in prison, and according to my investigations is involved in other frauds currently. If we confront him with that, maybe we can make a deal. He testifies against Emily in exchange for a reduced sentence. And do you think he will accept criminals like Rick always think of themselves first? If he sees he can save himself, he's going to sell out Emily without thinking twice. When are you going to do that today, this afternoon? But Mrs. Smith, he looked at me seriously. I need to ask you something. What I need you to confront Emily. My mouth went dry. What if Rick talks? Emily is going to know someone snitched on her. She is going to get nervous. She is going to make mistakes. And that is where you come in. I do not understand. I want you to call her. Tell her you need to talk to her, that it is important. And when you are together, pressure her. Let her know you know the truth. You want me to confront her. A murderer. You will be safe. I'm going to have 2 officers nearby watching, and you are going to wear a hidden wire. If Emily says something incriminating, we will have it recorded. Detective, she sent her lawyer to threaten me. Do you think she is going to confess just like that? I do not expect her to confess completely. But when someone is under pressure, they say things. They let slip details, and that is all we need. A detail that connects her directly to the crime. I thought about it. It was dangerous, stupid even, but it was also my only chance to get justice for Daniel. When tonight? Call her now. Tell her you need to see her, that you want to apologize for everything, that you want to make peace for Matthew's sake. I took out my phone with trembling hands. I looked for Emily's contact. I pressed call. It rang 3 times before she answered. Kathy. Her voice sounded surprised. Emily, I need to talk to you. It is important. I have nothing to talk about with you. My lawyer already. Please. It is about Matthew, about Daniel. Just give me a chance. Half an hour. Silence on the other end. What do you want to talk about in person? Please, we can meet in a public place if that makes you feel more comfortable. Another long pause. Okay, but only half an hour, and it has to be in a place of my choice. Whatever you say. Do you know Cafe Berlin on 5th Avenue at 7 in the evening? I will be there. She hung up. The detective nodded. Good now, listen carefully. The following hours were a whirlwind. The detective explained exactly what to say, how to pressure her, what to look for in her reactions. He placed a tiny microphone under my blouse. He showed me how it worked. Remember, ma'am, do not accuse her directly. Just ask her questions, make her feel uncomfortable, and above all, keep her calm. At 6:30, I left for Cafe Berlin. My legs barely held me up. My heart beat so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The cafe was on a nice corner. Outdoor tables under leafy trees, young people talking, laughing, with no idea they were about to witness a confrontation between a mother and her son's murderer. I arrived early. I ordered a coffee I did not drink, just held it between my hands. At 7 o'clock exactly. Emily arrived. She looked flawless as always. Elegant black dress, high heels, perfect hair. She was wearing dark glasses even though it was already starting to get dark. She sat opposite me without smiling. Here I am. What is so urgent? I took a deep breath. I wanted to apologize for everything. I know I have been difficult, and I know Daniel would not have wanted us to be fighting. She looked at me suspiciously. Is that all? Did you come to apologize and to ask you to let me see Matthew? He is my grandson, the only piece of Daniel I have left. Matthew is fine where he is, I know, but I just want to be part of his life, as a grandmother, as family. Emily took off her glasses. Her eyes were cold. Calculating, Kathy, let's be honest, you never liked me. From day one, you thought I was not enough for your son. That is not. Yes, it is. And you know what? I do not care. Because Daniel chose me. He loved me. And now he is not here. And I have to move on with my life. Move on. He died barely 2 months ago. And what do you want me to do? Lock myself up and cry forever? I have a son to raise. I have a life to live. And $1 million to collect. She went very still. What did you say, the insurance? $1 million. Must be very comforting, right? Knowing financially you are going to be okay. That money is for Matthew, for his future. Are you sure? Because I heard you already bought a new car, a BMW. Very nice, by the way. Her eyes narrowed. Are you watching me? I just hear things. People talk. Kathy, I do not know what you are insinuating, but I am not insinuating anything. I just find it curious. Daniel dies in a very convenient accident. Just when you just took out a millionaire insurance policy in his name, she stood up abruptly. I am leaving. This was a mistake. Sit down, Emily. I am not finished yet. I do not have to listen to you, not even if I tell you that I know about Rick. She froze. Her face went pale. Slowly, she sat back down. I do not know what you are talking about. Yes, you do. Rick Stevens, your lover, Matthew's father. Her mouth opened slightly. Are you crazy? Am I crazy? I have photographs? Emily, photographs of you two in hotels, in restaurants, kissing, hugging. That proves nothing. I also have bank statements, joint bank accounts, $50,000 you stole from my son over 2 years. Her breathing accelerated. That is a lie. And I have a paternity test proving Matthew is not Daniel's son. Now her face was completely pale. Her hands trembled on the table. What do you want, Kathy? I want the truth. I want you to tell me what really happened that morning. Nothing happened. It was an accident. It was not an accident. Daniel discovered everything right. He discovered about Rick. He discovered you were stealing from him. He discovered Matthew was not his. And when he confronted you, shut up. When he confronted you, you decided to kill him. Shut up. You sabotaged his car. 3 days before the accident. You and Rick. I saw it all, Emily. I have the video. She stood up so fast her chair fell backward. People at nearby tables turned to see us. You have nothing. You are inventing everything because you cannot accept your son had an accident. My son left me a letter where he told me he was scared, that you were poisoning him, that if something happened to him, not to trust you. Tears started falling down her cheeks, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. Your son was an idiot who thought love and kindness were enough. He worked all day to give me crumbs while I deserved much more. Then you admit you killed him. She realized what she had just said. Her expression changed, from rage to panic. I did not say that. You just did. No, I just said he was an idiot. That does not mean that you and Rick sabotaged his car, that you killed him for money. No, I did not. She fell silent suddenly, looked around, as if suddenly realizing we were in public, that people were watching us. She bent down, picked up her purse from the ground. I am not going to keep listening to your craziness. If you come near me again, if you threaten me again, I am going to call the police. Call them. I also have some things to tell them. She looked at me with pure hate. You are a bitter old woman who cannot accept she lost her son. But you are not going to destroy my life with your lies. She left. She walked fast, almost running toward the street. She got into her car, a new BMW, as I had said, and drove off. I stayed sitting, trembling with tears falling down my cheeks. It had worked. I had pressured her. I had made her admit, even if partially, that Daniel was a hindrance. My phone vibrated. It was a message from the detective. We recorded it all. Good job. Now we go for Rick. I paid for the coffee and left the place. The 2 officers who had been watching me from a nearby table followed me discreetly to my car. Are you okay, ma'am? One of them asked. Yes, I just want to go home. We will follow you to make sure you arrive safely. On the way home, my phone rang. It was the unknown number again. Yes, Kathy, what did you do? The distorted voice sounded urgent, scared. Emily called you crazy on social media. She says you are harassing her. This is not good. The detective told me to confront her. We needed her to say something incriminating, and now she knows you know. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Yes, but it is done. Now they are going to arrest her. They are going to do justice. I hope you are right, because if something goes wrong, the line cut off again. I arrived home. The officers stayed outside watching. I went in, locked the door, checked all the windows. I sat in my living room and waited. I waited for the detective to call me and tell me they had arrested Emily and Rick. I waited for finally, after so much pain there, to be justice. But the call I received an hour later was not from Detective Miller. It was from another number. Official. Mrs. Kathy Smith, yes. I am Commander Vega from the precinct. I need to inform you that Detective Carlos Miller has been removed from your son's case. Why for misconduct? Apparently, he conducted an unauthorized investigation and harassed witnesses without permission from his superiors. That is a lie. He was doing his job. Ma'am, I also have to warn you that Mrs. Emily Mendez has filed a formal complaint against you for harassment and defamation. If you continue contacting her, you will face legal charges. Legal charges. She killed my son. Ma'am, I understand you are hurt by your loss, but making baseless accusations can bring you serious trouble. I recommend you seek psychological help to process your grief. He hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, unable to believe what I had just heard. They had removed Miller from the case, the person who finally believed me, the only person who was trying to do justice. And now Emily was suing me. I called the detective. He sent me straight to voicemail. I left him a message, then another and another. None were answered. That night was the longest of my life. I did not sleep at all. I just stayed awake, sitting in the dark, feeling everything crumbling around me. I had lost. Emily had won, and my son, my poor son, would never have justice. I woke up on the sofa with the previous day's clothes still on. I did not remember falling asleep. I only remembered the darkness, the crushing weight of defeat. I got up with an aching body. I walked to the kitchen like a zombie. I put water to boil for coffee. While I waited, I looked out the window toward my garden. The rose bush, the sad rose bush where I had buried the evidence. And then, like a ray of light piercing the fog, I had absolute clarity. I had been wrong. All this time, I had been trying to fight on Emily's turf, using the same weapons as her. Lies, manipulation, the corrupt system. But I was not like her. I never would be. And there was something she did not understand, something she would never understand. The truth does not need to shout to be heard. It just needs time. I poured my coffee. I sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, I did not cry. I did not tremble. I did not feel panic. I felt peace, because I finally understood what I had to do. I was not going to confront Emily anymore. I was not going to go to the police again. I was not going to fight against a system that was clearly bought. I was going to do something much more powerful. I was going to wait. I was going to let life do its job, because murderers always betray themselves. Guilt, fear, greed eventually destroy them from the inside. I just had to step out of the way and let karmic justice follow its natural course. But before being able to do that, I had to protect the evidence, just in case someday someone needed it. I went out to the garden. I dug up the envelope from under the rose bush. It was intact, protected by the layers of plastic. I went into the house. I sat at the dining table with all the documents in front of me, the photographs of Emily with Rick, the statements, the paternity test, Daniel's letter, the copies of the video, the whole truth about my son's murder. What to do with all this? Then I had an idea. I took my laptop, I opened my email, and I wrote a letter. Not a letter for the police, not a letter for a lawyer, a letter for Matthew, for my grandson. Dear Matthew, when you read this letter, you will probably be an adult man, maybe 20, 25 years old, maybe more. I do not know if you will remember me. Probably not. You were very little when all this happened. I am Kathy Daniels' mom, the man who raised you as his son during the first years of your life. I write this letter because there are things you need to know, things your mom is never going to tell you. Daniel was not your biological father, but he loved you as if you were. He took care of you. He protected you. He gave you everything he had. And when he discovered the truth about your mom, about her lover Rick, about all the deception when he was about to walk away from that toxic situation and start a new life, they killed him. It was not an accident, Matthew. Although that is what they told you. Your mom and Rick sabotaged his car. They murdered him for money. For $1 million of a life insurance policy they took out with his forged signature. I know this is hard to read. I know you probably do not believe me. I know your mom will have told you another version of the story. But attached to this letter are all the proofs, the photographs. The bank documents the video of the sabotage. The letter Daniel wrote me days before dying. Everything is there. I do not ask you to do anything with this information. I do not ask you to avenge Daniel. I do not ask you to hate your mom. I only ask that you know the truth, because we all deserve to know the truth about our past, about who we really are, about where we come from. Daniel was a good man, the best man I knew. And even though you were not his blood, you were his son, because he chose you, because he loved you. And I hope someday when you are old enough to understand all this, you can honor his memory in the way you consider right. I love you, Matthew. Although you do not know me, although you do not remember me, you are my grandson and always will be. With love, your grandma, Kathy. I saved the letter in a document. I attached all the digitized evidence, the photographs, the documents, the video, everything. And then I sent the email to an online storage account with scheduled delivery. The email would be sent automatically to Matthew when he turned 21. It did not matter what happened to me. It did not matter if Emily tried to erase the trail. It did not matter if the corrupt police destroyed the physical evidence. The truth would exist, waiting, ready to be discovered when it was the right time, when Matthew was adult enough to handle it. I closed the laptop. I put the physical evidence back in the envelope. I buried them again in the garden. And then I did something I had not done in months. I breathed, deep, calm, liberating. I had released the weight. It was no longer my responsibility to force justice. I no longer had to fight against windmills. I just had to trust that time reveals all truths. The following days were strange, quiet almost. I did not call Detective Miller anymore. I did not look for Emily anymore. I did nothing. I just lived. I watered my plants. I went out to walk. I bought pastries at the bakery. I greeted my neighbors. Some still looked at me with pity, with judgment, but I did not care anymore because I knew the truth. And that was enough. One afternoon, 2 weeks after my confrontation with Emily, I was at the market buying tomatoes when I heard two women talking. Did you see about Emily Mendez? No, what happened? Her boyfriend left her. That Rick. He left with all the insurance money. My hand stopped over the tomatoes. Really, yes. My cousin works at the bank and says they emptied all the accounts. Rick disappeared. Emily is desperate filing complaints, but no one can find him. Oh, God, poor woman. First she becomes a widow, and now this. Well, yes, although I heard that relationship was kind of weird. Like it started very fast after the husband's death. I walked away from them without being seen. I paid for my groceries. I left the market with my heart beating strong. Rick had betrayed her. The same man with whom she had planned Daniel's murder. The same man for whom she had risked everything. He had used her and left her. Karma had started its work. That night, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me do it. Mrs. Smith. It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. Yes, who is speaking? You do not know me. My name is Danny. I was Rick Stevens' secretary. My breathing accelerated. What do you need? I need to talk to someone. I need to tell the truth about what happened. About your son. What do you know about my son? I know everything. I was there when Rick and Emily planned everything. I heard their conversations. I should have said something before, but I was scared. But now that Rick left and left me without a job, without anything, I have nothing left to lose. Tears started falling down my cheeks. Are you willing to talk to the police? Yes, but I do not trust them. I know someone is helping Emily, someone in the police department. That is why the case was closed so fast. Who Commander Vega? He is Rick's cousin. It was him who made sure the original security video disappeared. It was him who pressured to remove the detective who was investigating for real. Everything was starting to make sense. Danny, why are you calling me? Because I found your number in Rick's papers. He had you watched. He had photos of you of your house. I think they were planning. I think he was going to hurt you. My blood froze. When I do not know, but I found the papers 2 days ago before Rick disappeared. That is why I am calling you to warn you and to tell you I am willing to testify. But we need to go higher to the Attorney General, skip Commander Vega completely. How do I know I can trust you? You cannot, but I am going to send you something right now to the email I found in Rick's files. When you see it, you will know I am telling the truth. She hung up. I ran to my laptop. I refreshed the email over and over until a new message appeared. It was from an anonymous account. No subject, just an attached audio file. I opened it. It was a recording, a conversation between Rick and Emily. Are you sure it is going to work? Emily's voice. Totally. The brakes are going to fail at the first sharp curve. It is going to look like an accident. No one is going to suspect anything. Rick's voice. And can your cousin cover it up? It is already fixed. Vega is going to ensure the investigation is closed fast. Accident due to mechanical failure. Case closed. And the money, it arrives in a month. 1 million. And then we leave together, far from here, to start a new life. What do we do with his mom? She suspects. Do not worry. If she becomes a problem, we also eliminate her. A robbery gone wrong. A domestic accident. There are many ways. My stomach turned. They had planned to kill me too. The recording continued. They talked about details, about how they forged Daniel's signature on the insurance, about how they were going to split the money, about their plans to flee the country. It was everything. It was the whole confession. Everything we needed. My phone rang again. It was Danny. Did you hear it? Yes. I have more. I have emails, text messages, everything saved on a USB drive. Rick did not know I made copies of everything. I have always been careful just in case. Why did you do it? Why did you keep all this? Because I knew Rick was dangerous. Because I wanted to protect myself. And because she paused. Because your son did not deserve to die like that. I met him once. In a business meeting. He was kind, polite, a good man. And when I knew what Rick and Emily did to him, I could not just stay silent forever. Where are you now? In a safe place. But I need us to go together tomorrow to the Attorney General's office, directly with the district attorney, without going through anyone else. It is the only way to ensure these proofs do not disappear. What time? At 10 in the morning. Meet me at the entrance of the Federal Building downtown. Can you be there? I will be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply, without nightmares, without fear, only with deep peace. Because I knew the next day everything was going to change. The truth was going to come to light. Not because I had forced it, not because I had fought, but because the universe has a way of balancing things, always. The next morning, I got ready carefully. I put on my best dress. I applied light makeup. I wanted to look respectable, dignified, like the mother of a man who deserved justice. I arrived at the DA's office at 9:30. Danny was already there. She was a young woman, about 30 years old, thin, with a face marked by fear, but also by determination. Mrs. Smith, she greeted me. Call me Kathy. We shook hands, and in that moment, I knew everything was going to be fine, because the truth does not fight, it does not shout, it does not defend itself, it simply exists, and eventually always finds a way to come to light. The district attorney received us in his office. He was a man of about 60, serious, piercing gaze. He listened to our story in silence. Danny put the USB drive on the desk. Here is everything: the recordings, the emails, the text messages between Emily and Rick planning the murder. The DA connected the USB to his computer. He listened to the recordings. He read the documents. His expression hardened with every minute that passed. "This is enough," he said finally. "I am going to issue immediate arrest warrants for Emily Mendez, Rick Stevens, and Commander Vega. Rick already fled the country," Danny said, "but I can give you all the information I have about his contacts and possible locations. We will do it. And thanks to you both for your bravery." 2 days later, Emily was arrested. The news appeared in all the papers. Widow arrested for husband's murder. Planned crime with lover to collect millionaire insurance. I saw her photograph on the news. Handcuffed, being taken to the patrol car. Her face was no longer that of the perfect and controlled woman. It was the face of someone who had finally been caught. Commander Vega was also arrested, accused of obstruction of justice and complicity in homicide. And Rick was captured 3 weeks later in Cancun, trying to cross to Belize with cash and fake documents. The trial lasted 6 months. I attended every hearing. I sat in the front row looking Emily in the eyes every time I could. She never held my gaze. Danny testified. Detective Miller, reinstated in his post, testified. Audio experts confirmed the authenticity of the recordings. Forensics analyzed the car and confirmed the sabotage. There was no way to escape. The truth was overwhelming. Emily was sentenced to 30 years in prison, Rick to 35, Commander Vega to 15. When the judge read the verdict, I did not feel triumph. I did not feel joy. I only felt peace because my son could finally rest. I left the court that day and the sun was shining, the sky was blue, birds were singing, and I knew Daniel was at peace wherever he was. 6 months after the trial, I received an unexpected call. It was from Emily's parents. They asked me to come see them. They needed to talk to me about Matthew. I went to their house. They were older people destroyed by shame and the pain of what their daughter had done. Mrs. Kathy said, Emily's mother with tears in her eyes, "We did not know anything. If we had suspected something." I know I said, "I do not blame you." Matthew needs a family. We are very old. We cannot raise him alone. And you are his grandmother, the only mother Daniel knew. But I am not his blood. But you love him, and he needs love. He needs to know there are good people in this world. 2 months later, they granted me shared custody of Matthew with his maternal grandparents. The boy was almost 3 years old. He did not understand much of what had happened. He only knew his mom was no longer there. "Where is Mommy?" He asked me the first day he came to my house. "Your mommy had to go far away." I told him, holding him, "But I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to tell you stories about a very good man who loved you very much." "Who your daddy Daniel?" And so, little by little, I started telling him about Daniel. Not about the tragedy, not about the murder, only about the good man he had been. The man who had taken care of that child as if he were his own blood. Life continued. Emily serves her sentence. I learned that Rick tried to appeal the sentence, but was rejected. Commander Vega was released after 6 years for good behavior, but his reputation was destroyed forever. And I found peace in raising Matthew, in telling him stories of his dad, in ensuring he grew up knowing he was loved. Someday, when he is 21, he will receive my letter. He will know the whole truth, and I hope by then he is strong enough to handle it. Because the truth hurts, but it also liberates, and we all deserve to be free. I still wonder if I did the right thing. Sometimes, but then I look at Matthew playing in the garden, the same garden where once I buried the evidence under the sad rose bush. And that rose bush, for the first time in years, has flowers, white roses, beautiful, pure, as if Daniel were telling me everything is fine, that I did the right thing, that justice. although it took time, finally arrived. 5 years have passed since the trial. Matthew is now 7 years old. He goes to elementary school. He likes math and soccer. He has Daniel's smile even if he does not carry his blood. There is something in the way he laughs, in the way he tilts his head when he is thinking that reminds me so much of my son that sometimes my heart aches, but it is a sweet pain, the pain of remembering someone loved. Every night before sleeping, Matthew asks me to tell him a story about his daddy Daniel. Tell me when Daddy Daniel bought you this house, Grandma. Tell me when Daddy Daniel was a boy like me. Tell me when Daddy Daniel carried me. And I tell him. All the stories I keep in my heart, the good ones, the beautiful ones, the ones worth remembering. I have never spoken to him about Emily. Someday I will, when it is the right moment, when he is old enough to understand that the world is not always fair, but that eventually the truth prevails. Matthew's maternal grandparents come to visit him every weekend. They are good people who carry a shame they do not deserve, but little by little. Over time we have built something resembling a family. Broken, yes, imperfect, definitely, but full of love for this child who unites us. Detective Miller retired last year. He invited me to his farewell party. He told me Daniel's case had been the most important of his career, not because of the complexity, but because of what it taught him about perseverance and dignity. You never gave up Mrs. Kathy even when everything seemed lost. That is something I am never going to forget. Danny, the brave secretary who testified, now works at an organization helping victims of violence. We write to each other from time to time. She got married 2 years ago. She is expecting her first child. She invited me to be the godmother. And Emily is still in prison. She has 25 years left of her sentence. Sometimes I think of her not with hate. That went away a long time ago. I think of her with something resembling pity, because she lost everything out of greed for wanting a life that did not correspond to her, for not valuing what she had. Daniel loved her for real, and she destroyed that love, destroyed his life, and in the end destroyed her own. That is the true tragedy. Not only that she killed a good man, but she wasted the opportunity to be loved by someone genuine. Karma is not revenge. Karma is simply consequence. It is life returning what one puts into the world. Emily put betrayal, lies, and violence. And that is exactly what she received back. Rick never contacted her again from prison. He used her until the end, and now she is alone, serving her sentence with no one to visit her, with no one to love her. There is justice in that, a silent but absolute justice. This morning, while preparing breakfast for Matthew, I looked out the window toward the garden. The rose bush is more beautiful than ever, full of white roses, fragrant, alive. I planted it years ago with Daniel, and for so long it was sad, flowerless, almost dead. But now it blooms as if it knew finally there is peace in this house, as if the earth itself breathed relieved. Matthew ran out to the garden before going to school. Grandma, look, there is a butterfly on the rose bush. I went closer. It was a monarch butterfly, orange and black, beautiful. It perched on one of the white roses and stayed there with wings open, shining under the morning sun. It is Daddy Daniel, said Matthew with that certainty only children have. He came to visit us. Tears filled my eyes. Maybe yes, my love, maybe yes. The butterfly stayed there a few seconds more, then took flight and left rising toward the blue sky. And I stayed there, standing, holding my grandson's hand, feeling something I had not felt in years, gratitude. Because although Daniel left too soon, although he suffered a terrible injustice, although his life was stolen, he also left love, left lessons, left a legacy. And that legacy lives in me. Lives in Matthew, lives in every person who knew him and who will remember him as the good man he was. That night, after putting Matthew to bed, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea. I looked at Daniel's photograph I have on the shelf. My smiling son, young, full of hope. I did it, my love, I told him in a low voice. I kept my promise, justice was done. And now you can rest. and I swear, I felt something, a warm presence, a peace that filled the room as if Daniel were saying thank you, as if he were telling me everything was fine. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and let go. Let go of the pain. Let go of the rage. Let go of the weight of these years, because I no longer needed it. I had already fulfilled my mission. If my story helps a single woman to open her eyes to trust her instinct not to stay silent when something is wrong, then all this will have been worth it. If my story teaches someone that justice exists, even if sometimes it is late, even if sometimes the road is dark, then Daniel's pain was not in vain. And if my story shows someone that a mother never gives up, that true love transcends death, that the truth always finds a way to come to light, then I can rest in peace, because I was just a mother, a common and ordinary mother who loved her son and who did what any mother would do, fight for him until the end. And now while I look at the garden through the window, while I see the white roses shining under the moon, while I hear the quiet breathing of Matthew sleeping in his room, I know I did the right thing. I know Daniel is proud, and I know that in the end, love always wins, always. Thank you for listening to me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and hit the bell to hear more stories of women who transform their pain into wisdom. Every day, a woman, a life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change a whole day. May God bless you, and until next time.